I'm going to answer all your questions about the EV tax credit. And then I'm going to give some other information about the tax credit that are important to know and help you get the maximum amount on your tax return. So, let's just hop right in. Can you explain the AGI limits and how it impacts EV credits? Absolutely. The AGI limits are this: $300,000 for married filing joint, $225,000 for head of household, and $150,000 for a single filer or pretty much anyone else. So what that means is, as soon as you are $1 over that adjusted gross income level, you will phase out from being able to take this credit entirely. Do understand, you can actually take either the year the vehicle is delivered to you or the prior year's AGI. So what that means is, if I got a vehicle delivered to me and I put it into use in 2023, I can actually use my AGI from 2022 or 2023, whichever will allow me to be eligible for the credit. What about the California EV tax credit? It's a great question. I'm sure a lot of states are going to have their own EV credit. That said, I want to answer for the broad public, which means I'm going to focus on federal taxes. I could get into each state and all that kind of stuff, but it would be a lot of research for me to do. So if your state may or may not have one, just be sure to research it and see what you have going on and talk about it with your accountant at tax time. How does the $7,500 clash with the standard deduction? If I typically do the standard deduction, will the EV credit be worth it? Understand this: credits are not itemized deductions. It's not changing what type of deduction you take on your tax return, because credits are a reduction in the tax that you owe, not a reduction in the taxable income that you have. A deduction reduces how much income you have so you can calculate the amount of tax that you owe. For instance, let's say you had $100,000 in income and you had $20,000 in deductions, including your standard deduction and whatever else. Now you have $80,000 of taxable income. I look at my tax brackets, I see how that all calculates, and that's going to tell me how much tax I owe. Let's say you owe $8,000 on that $80,000 in taxable income. Now, I take a look at the credits I have to reduce that tax that I owe of $8,000. If you had a $7,500 credit, that means I would reduce $8,000 in taxes down to $500 in taxes. That's how credits and deductions generally work. Hi, what income is the EV credit based on? The year it's purchased or the prior year? So like I mentioned just previously, it's actually going to be based on the current year you received the vehicle or the prior year, which is pretty cool. So the credit is applied before the tax prepayment when totaling it out. That is correct. What you prepay in, like estimated taxes or withholdings on your W-2, have no bearing on the amount of tax credit you can get. I have another video that explains this in a lot more depth. Can you get this credit more than once? Could you get a new car every year or every couple of years and receive the $7,500 each year? I don't see any guidance that says that you couldn't, because it's based on the vehicle purchase. So that is under which we're going to take the credit. So if you buy a bunch every year, then sure, I guess you'll have multiple credits. Do understand it's limited to the amount of tax liability you have, and if you can't use it all that year, it's gone. Does the credit carry forward? It does not if you have purchased the vehicle personally. So if I can only use $5,000 of the $7,500 credit I can get, I lose $2,500 in a credit. That said, if I actually buy this as a business vehicle and the credit passes through from my business to me personally, I actually can carry it forward. So there's that. Can I buy 2 EVs this year and receive $15,000 in tax credits? My liability is over $15,000. I don't see why you couldn't, because again, the guidance says that it's based on the vehicles. So if the vehicle is eligible for the credit, sure. And if you have enough tax liability, then sure, it could reduce your taxes entirely. Watch out for leases. Usually the dealer rolls the credit into any price reductions. Can you still claim it? No, unfortunately, there's especially no guidance on this, but it does not appear that you'll be able to claim any kind of credit for leasing the vehicle. That said, in 2024, it's going to be more available for dealerships to roll this into the actual price of the vehicle and give you like a rebate for it. Some dealerships are doing that now as well. But that said, understand if you lease it, it goes to whoever owns the vehicle, which would be the dealership, not you. So if I'm an independent contractor, it would benefit me because I'll owe more than $7,500 when the tax season comes. Maybe. Do understand, this credit going against your tax liability is a tax liability before self-employment tax. And as an independent contractor, like a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, a lot of your tax is usually going to be built up in self-employment tax, which is Social Security and Medicare tax, FICA tax. And a W-2 person doesn't get a credit against what they paid into FICA taxes. And in the same way, you will not get a credit against your self-employment tax. So if the majority of your tax is built up in SE, unfortunately, it's not going to reduce that. It reduces the taxes that come prior to that. Could I buy a Tesla this year, get the tax credit for 2023, sell my car in 2024? What tax would I owe in 2024 on the Tesla sale if I did that? I have really not seen any guidance on this. I keep on looking, but I still haven't seen anything be updated at this point in time. I believe it's because it's the first year this has really been enacted, and so people haven't sold them at this point in time. So I'm sure we will receive a lot more guidance as time goes on. What I do anticipate happening is the credit that you received will reduce the basis that you have in that vehicle. So if I bought it for $50,000, I got a $7,500 credit. It's going to reduce my basis down to $42,500, right? And if I sell it for $45,000, then I'll have a little bit of a gain. If I sell it for less, then I won't have anything. That's how I believe it will go down. I don't think you're going to have to pay back the credit or anything like that. But again, as time goes on, we will certainly receive more guidance on this. What about the tax credit for used electric vehicles? This is a good question. There are credits for used electric vehicles as well. They have to be $25,000 or less, and the credit's going to be up to $4,000 or 30% of the vehicle purchase price. And there are other qualifications for it as well, but that's the main gist of it. Converting a bunch of pre-tax money in your 401k to Roth money could increase the amount of EV credit you could claim if your tax owed was less than $7,500. This is actually a really great tip because let's say you don't owe enough in tax. Let's say you're going to have a $5,000 tax liability. Well, if I can get the full $7,500 credit, I lose $2,500 in the credit. I mean, that's fine, but let's say I have money that's been put into a deductible IRA or a 401k. Well, if I convert that over into a Roth to bring up my taxable income, still below the thresholds, but bring up my taxable income so that I have more tax owed. Let's say I bring it up to $2,500 more in taxes owed. Now I just converted a bunch of money over to a Roth, and I don't have to pay any taxes on it because I'm able to utilize the rest of my credit. It's a good tax tip. I like this. Talk about it with your broker and your accountant about how you might be able to do this. So it doesn't matter how much I withhold. It's about my tax liability. Bingo, bango. Again, I have another video which describes this in a lot more detail. Where can I find out which cars are available for this credit? We'll be looking for a new car in the upcoming months. Do hybrid vehicles count? I believe plug-in hybrid vehicles are part of this list as well. You can go to fueleconomy.gov to find their list of vehicles that are eligible and I think how much they're eligible for and things like that. And they're continually updating this list. I will provide a link in the description below. But that works if you take a loan on the car or just paying cash. You can pay cash or get a loan. Understand, when I get a loan, that's just me paying with someone else's cash. That's still me owning the vehicle. I'm just paying someone else over time. So yes, cash or loan, that is you owning the vehicle, you'd be eligible for the credit. Lease, no, because a lease means I don't own the vehicle. The dealership still does. And here are a few more things to understand about the EV tax credit so you're well prepared for the tax season. The first thing is this. Not only are you subject to AGI limitations, but you're also subject to limitations on the price of the vehicle. And this is the MSRP price of the vehicle. So the price of the vehicle cannot be more than $80,000 for vans, SUVs, and pickup trucks, and it cannot be more than $55,000 for all other vehicles. And this is based on MSRP, not the price you paid for it. So if the price you paid for it was over $55,000, let's say for a car, but the MSRP was $55,000 or $52,000, right? There's a big markup. You're actually going to be still eligible for it. On the flip side, if the MSRP was $60,000, but you got them down to $55,000, does not matter. The MSRP was over and you're no longer eligible for the credit. So do be aware of that. Second thing, understand this. The $7,500 is a maximum of the credit. You have to meet a number of other qualifications in order to get yourself up to this maximum amount. And here are the base qualifications for a vehicle. 1, it has to at least have 7 kilowatt hours of battery capacity. 2, it must have a gross vehicle weight rating of 14,000 pounds or less. It has to have had final assembly in North America. It has to be made by a qualified manufacturer. It must meet the critical mineral and battery component requirements as of April 18th, 2023 and after. You must buy the vehicle new, and the seller has to report the information to the IRS at the time of sale, because the IRS is going to match up what you report on your tax return and what they received from the dealership. As to the $7,500 being the maximum credit that you can get, it's essentially going to be based on the kilowatt hours you have in that battery capacity for the vehicle. Because each kilowatt hour you have over 5 kilowatt hours gets you $417 more of a credit to a maximum of $7,500. Here's the way the IRS describes it. For vehicles placed in service January 1 to April 17th, you're not subject to the mineral and battery component requirements, but you have a $2,500 base amount credit. Then you get $417 for a vehicle with at least 7 kilowatt hours, and that's also the requirement. It has to have 7 kilowatt hours. And then you're going to get $417 for each kilowatt hour that you have in excess of that, right? Up to $7,500. So really, the minimum amount of credit you're going to get is $3,751 because you got 5, 6, and 7 kilowatt hours as the minimum to be under the requirements of this credit, meaning you're going to get $3,751 as the base credit, and then each kilowatt hour over 7, you're going to get another $417. There you go. And then after April 18th of 2023, if that's when you receive delivery of the vehicle, you're basically split in two. If you meet the critical minerals requirement, you're going to get $37.50 as your max credit. And if you meet the battery components requirement, you're going to get $37.50 as your max, right? So if you only meet one of those, $37.50 is your max. Again, that's basically where you're just going to be, because 7 kilowatt hours is the base amount of kilowatt hours you have to be eligible for this credit anyways. So if you have both the critical minerals and the battery components requirement, you'll get $7,500 of a maximum credit. Again, it's going to go back to that kilowatt hours on the battery. So as with everything, nothing is easy. There are a lot of factors that go into this. That said, keep all the documentation for the vehicles that you buy. Talk with your accountant before you buy something. Make sure that you are eligible, or how you can remain eligible for this credit if you're butting up on the AGI limitations or anything else like that. Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, and hit that notification bell. And if you want to follow me on any other platforms, I'm on TikTok and Instagram. And a lot of people tag me in videos there, on videos that they find a little suspect, and I can give them a review either on here or on those platforms. I look forward to seeing you all in the next video.